The topic that we are going to discuss today is the strategies that we can use as teachers in the classroom to manage various learning styles that our students have, how we can make our lessons more appealing, more interesting, more impressive, and more productive, most importantly, so that every student gets opportunity to participate in the class, learn from what you're doing, instead of just meeting one learning style, one intelligence type. So it is better to make our lessons such that everybody benefits from them. That's the whole idea. So we are going to take a quick look at the learning styles and intelligences, and maybe we are going to spend more time on item 4 of that you see on the screen, the applications, how teachers can benefit from this. So my presentation is coming to you in 4 different parts. We will very briefly discuss what are learning styles, and also again very briefly discuss how these differences arise. And we will also take a look at all the different learning styles, as many as possible, at least the most important ones. And finally, we'll try to apply what we have learned to our classrooms, the pedagogic implications and applications. So this is the structure of my presentation, and I'm going to make it in last time I think I told you I would like to all of you to have your cameras on, microphones available whenever necessary. You can unmute yourself and you can pitch in whenever you want. You need not wait till the end of the session. If you think you have a question, you can stop me at that point itself and ask me the question. I'd love to have those questions anytime, and maybe we will discuss and learn together. The first question that I'd like to answer is, what learning style are you? Maybe you have not studied it in detail, or maybe you do not know much about that, but don't worry about that. To begin with a very simple question, I have 3 questions that you see on screen. My question 1 is, if you have to remember a new word, you would most likely, I'm going to show you the alternative answers, the 2 or 3 possible answers I'm going to give you. You have to choose one and write in the chat box. The second question that I'd like to ask you is, you remember new people when you see a stranger, when you meet them, when you interact with them, when you become friends with them, how do you remember them? So what trick helps you remember people? And the third question is, while you are in a class, whatever subject you teach, while you are in the class, you would like to do which of these things? So each question comes with 3 possible answers. What you need to do is read the answers carefully and identify the answer that applies best to you, the most closely to you, and identify the name, the number of that. They are numbered ABC. For instance, your answer to question 1 is A, remember A, and your answer to question 2 is B, and the answer to question 3 is A. So write in the chat box A, B, A together. A, B, B, A, C, 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 A, C, B, B, whatever combination. So is that clear to you?
Yes, sir.
So you need not write the numbers of the questions again. You need not write 1, 2, 3. Just write the answer to question 1, answer to question 2, and answer to question 3. And here are the possible answers. The first question, if you have to remember a new word, you most likely picture the word in your mind, repeat the word aloud to yourself several times, or trace the letters with your finger. So your answer must be either A or B or C. Then question 2, you remember new people mostly by their actions, their faces, or their names. So again, your answer is A, B, or C. And the third question is, while you are in your class, you would like to take notes even if you do not reread them. Imagine you are a student now, right? Listen intently to every word, right? And sit up close and watch the instructor. So if you are in a class as a student, which one of these 3 you would do most? So if your answers are there in the chat box, I'll be very happy to see them. And I think answers are coming in. Very good. I think Ritu Parana, you have given answers to question 1 and 2. You need not write 1, 2, 3, just A, B, B, A, B, A, B, C, C. That's enough. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. A, B, A. And Zampna says A, B, A. Manivandan says A, B. Bhim says A, B. Reema Sankar says ABA. And Shruti says, if they are scrolling very fast, I cannot read all of them. BBC is from Vinod. Nimya says AAA. Yes. Uma says BAA. Ansmol says C to the second question only. And Daily Follows says BBA. Okay, we can stop there, I think. Do you understand anything already now? So you have seen answers. I've read them out for you. And do you see any pattern there, or do you understand anything from the answers that have come in? CBA is one answer, ABA is another answer. Anyone can unmute and tell me.
Sir, can I, sir?
Yeah, Daily, please.
Sir, I think the people who answer A like to imagine, visualize the the word or.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. We will not attribute anything yet, but from the answers, see, so many answers have already come. Some 20, 30 people have answered so far. So is there anything that we can understand from that, from these answers? We are not typing them.
Different styles of learning.
Sorry?
Different styles of learning.
Nirmala, thank you very much. Types of learning. What do you understand about types of learning from the answers?
Sir, I think some visually we imagine something, or something we try to, by the actions of the people, we try to hear something.
Good, thank you.
Like auditory mode of learning.
Let me ask you the same question a different way. Are all these answers similar? I've got 40 answers. Are they similar?
No.
No, sir. They cannot be
No.
similar.
They are not similar. So if they are not similar, can we draw any conclusion from that?
So different people have different learning styles.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So different people have different learning styles, or maybe we can call them learning styles or whatever later. So we can call them intelligences, we can call them learning styles, etc., etc. But for the time being, we understand that not all of us are alike. Not all of us do things the same way. Not all of us learn things the same way. Even remembering a face, for instance, remembering a student in the class. So we remember them different ways. So we are all teachers with similar qualifications, working in similar conditions perhaps, and then maybe working at a similar level. But despite that, right, we learn things differently. We grasp, comprehend, understand, analyze things differently. We view things differently, and we appreciate things differently. This is the answer that you have given me. Some 30, 40 people answered 30. I think no one, perhaps not many people answered the same way. So those three answers can be in different combinations. I think at least 10, 15 different combinations. So you have answered them. So from here, let's go on to see what are these differences. And where do these differences come from? And what can we do in case we know these differences? Let's begin. So, let's not go into that at this time. Right. So I'm going to show you a little long video. This is about maybe 6 or 7 minutes, but it's worth watching. But you should not just watch the video. After you've seen this video, you must be able to answer these three questions for me. My question number 1 is, do all students learn the same way? You have already answered it and also proved it, but let's see what this video says. So let's watch the video and answer this question. Do all students, right, in your class, wherever, students, do they learn the same way? The question 2 is, what do these differences depend on? Where do they come from? How do they arise? What is the origin of these learning differences? Right? Question 3, how does knowing these differences impact the teaching learning process in our classrooms? As a teacher, how does it impact me? Right? How does it impact my methodology, my approach to the classroom? Right? My handling of these differences. How do I benefit from this, or how does it affect me? So these are the 3 questions that you need to answer, and the video is going to be here. And please be ready to watch the video and be careful and listen carefully. And I'll show the questions back to you once again, and you need to answer them. Are you all ready?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, right, here comes the video. Please listen carefully.
Albert Einstein once said, everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today on trial we have modern day schooling. Glad you could come. Not only does he make fish climb trees, but also makes them climb down and do a 10-mile run. Tell me, school, are you proud of the things you've done? Turning millions of people into robots, do you find that fun? Do you realize how many kids relate to that fish swimming upstream in class, never finding their gifts, thinking they are stupid, believing they are useless? Well, the time has come, no more excuses. I call school to the stand and accuse him of killing creativity, individuality, and being intellectually abusive. He's an ancient institution that has outlived his usage. So, Your Honor, this concludes my opening statement, and if I may present the evidence of my case, I will prove it. Proceed. Exhibit A. Here's a modern day phone. Recognize it? Here's a phone from 150 years ago. Big difference, right? Stay with me. Here's a car from today, and here's a car from 150 years ago. Big difference, right? Well, get this. Here's a classroom of today, and here's a class we used 150 years ago. Now, ain't that a shame? In literally more than a century, nothing has changed. Yet you claim to prepare students for the future? But with evidence like that, I must ask, do you prepare students for the future or the past? I did a background check on you and let the record show that you were made to train people to work in factories, which explains why you put students in straight rows, nice and neat, tell them sit still, raise your hand if you want to speak, give them a short break to eat, and for 8 hours a day, tell them what to think. Oh, and make them compete to get an A. A letter which determines product quality, hence grade A of meat. I get it. Back then, times were different. We all have a past. I myself am no Gandhi. But today, we don't need to make robot zombies. The world has progressed. And now we need people who think creatively, innovatively, critically, independently, with the ability to connect. See, every scientist will tell you that no two brains are the same. And every parent with 2 or more children will confirm that claim. So please explain why you treat students like cookie cutter frames or snapback hats, giving them this one-size-fits-all crap. Watch your language. Sorry, Your Honor, but if a doctor prescribed the exact same medicine to all of his patients, the results would be tragic. So many people would get sick, yet when it comes to school, this is exactly what happens, this educational malpractice, where one teacher stands in front of 20 kids, each one having different strengths, different needs, different gifts, different dreams, and you teach the same thing the same way? That's horrific. Ladies and gentlemen, the defendant should not be acquitted. This may be one of the worst criminal offenses ever to be committed. And let's mention the way you treat your employees. Objection overruled. I want to hear this. It's a shame. I mean, teachers have the most important job on the planet, yet they're underpaid. No wonder so many students are short-changed. Let's be honest, teachers should earn just as much as doctors, because a doctor can do heart surgery and save the life of a kid, but a great teacher can reach the heart of that kid and allow him to truly live. See, teachers are heroes that often get blamed, but they're not the problem. They work in a system without many options or rights. Curriculums are created by policymakers, most of which have never taught a day in their life, just obsessed with standardized tests. They think bubbling in a multiple choice question will determine success. That's outlandish. In fact, these tests are too cruel to be used and should be abandoned, but don't take my word for it. Take Frederick J. Kelly, the man who invented standardized testing, who said, and I quote, "These tests are too cruel to be used and should be abandoned." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if we continue down this road, the results will be lethal. I don't have much faith in school, but I do have faith in people. And if we can customize healthcare, cars, and Facebook pages, then it is our duty to do the same for education, to upgrade it, change it, do away with school spirit, because that's useless. Unless we're working to bring the spirit out of each and every student, that should be our task. No more Common Core. Instead, let's reach the core of every heart in every class. Sure, math is important, but no more than art or dance. Let's give every gift an equal chance. I know this sounds like a dream, but countries like Finland are doing impressive things. They have shorter school days, teachers make a decent wage, homework is non-existent, and they focus on collaboration instead of competition. But here's the kicker, boys and girls. Their educational system outperforms every other country in the world. Other places like Singapore are succeeding rapidly. Schools like Montessori, programs like Khan Academy, there is no single solution. But let's get moving, because while students may be 20% of our population, they are 100% of our future. So let's attend to their dreams. And there's no telling what we can achieve. This is a world in which I believe, a world where fish are no longer forced to climb trees. I'll rest my case.
I'm sure you enjoyed watching that video, even if you watched it earlier, perhaps a second time or a third time, worth watching it. Okay, now let's go back to those questions that we began with. The first question was, do all students learn the same way?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Is there anyone who does not agree with that? No. I don't think anybody will say that, because I mean, we have our own personal experience. We have proved it a short while ago when we answered those questions in the first slide. So students do not learn the same way. They observe differently, they process information differently, they understand and they retain that information differently. Psychology has proved that how they store that information, how they retain that information in their brains, the process is different. Everybody does it a different way. And people recall that information when they have to get it back, recall that, and then they use different tools to recall that. So every student is a unique individual, right? We cannot just say this is a collective team of students. And you might have heard very carefully that the video said students come there with different objectives, they have different dreams, and they approach things differently, they respond to situations differently. So everything is different about people. So the first thing that we need to understand as young teachers is that students are bound to be different. And as a teacher, I am willing to accept that and start working on that premise. My students are not just one single collective uniformed lot, but they are different. That's the first thing. The second question that I asked you to check was, what differences or what do these differences come from? Where do they come from? How do they arise? Anyone? Please unmute and answer.
So maybe
I would like Paulami to answer first. After that, Nirmala. Yeah.
so maybe that different students prefers different way of learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why? The question is why? What do these differences come from? Nirmala, would you like to answer the question?
Maybe they have different abilities, difference in their abilities,
Yes, so do you have
interest,
an idea
background.
why these differences arise? Different abilities, where do they arise from?
There are different upbringing.
Lahari, please say that again.
There are different upbringing.
Okay. So parental care, parental
Yes.
teaching, etc., could be one of the reasons. Yes, thank you, Lahari. Any other things?
Can be in a cultural context also.
Yes, being cultural context in which they grow up could also contribute to these differences. The cultures in which we grow, the environments in which we grow, the way we are brought up could also be responsible for these differences.
Because in the video we could see a lot of different ethnicities there.
Yeah, ethnicity could be one of the reasons.
Asian, blacks, and as well as Caucasian.
Thank you, Beam. Thank you. Anyone else?
Sir, intelligence different. They have different IQ. Everybody.
Right. So IQ levels also could contribute to that, but we are not actually talking about intelligence, but this could be one of the factors. Yes, I agree with you. Yes. Anyone else?
Sir, different physiological factors.
One second, please. I also have some answers in the chat box. Somebody said different mindsets, different genetics. Yes. Okay. Sorry, somebody was saying something.
Sir, I was telling, sir, maybe different physiological factors.
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much for saying that. Even biological, physiological factors, our health condition, for instance, also could lead to some of these differences, right? How healthy you are, how well built you are, and then what is your biology, what are your genes, and what is your physiology, what's your anatomy. These also could contribute to the differences. Okay, what does the video say? The video says biological, cognitive, psychological, social, emotional, even environmental factors could affect the way one learns. So instead, what we are doing, we are, taking the whole lot as one single, as I told you already, uniformed lot, and then we approach the same way. We expect the fish to climb trees and climb down, and that's where the system fails. He talked about the uselessness of some of the examinations that we conduct, especially he mentioned one type of test which is nonsensical. What is that type of test?
Multiple choice.
Yeah, thank you, Nirmala. So multiple choice questions. He says just you put tick marks. Sometimes even without knowing the answer, perhaps you put tick marks and then you get some marks. Or even if you understand and carefully answer the questions, they may not really test your knowledge. It could be testing your memory, it could be testing lots of other things, but it's not really testing your worth. So multiple choice questions tests and many other kinds of tests that we use in the examination system are not completely reliable. That was one point that was made. Finally, the last question that I asked you to think about is how does knowing these differences impact teaching and learning, the teaching learning process in the classroom? Maybe you need not immediately answer this question because we are going to go through the rest of the slides and so we'll find answers to this question throughout. But in case anybody would like to contribute anything here, you are welcome, some 2 or 3 of you. How does knowing these differences impact our classroom performance as a teacher and the classroom process of teaching learning? Would anyone like to share? Because you're all already teaching. Vinod, yes, please.
Sir, if you understand these differences, so we can try to deliver the content the way they understand.
Excellent. Thank you, Vinod. Thank you very much. So we can manipulate the content so that everybody learns. That's a good idea. Yes. But I think the teacher has limited control over the content. The content is not decided by the teacher. The content is decided by the university, the materials makers, and the textbook writers. That's unfortunate, except in some autonomous colleges.
But sir, we can modify our presentation, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. I think Nirmala also said the teaching technique. Vinod also came back to talking about the methodology. I think there are some things that we can control which are in our hand so that the teaching learning process is impacted in the classroom. Thank you all of you. Thank you very much. Let's move on from here. So, I mean, as we progress from here to the next part of the presentation, I just have another question.
Just a second. It depends on our presentation.
Yes, you're right.
Yes, and our vibration.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That's exactly what the others two also have said. It is our presentation. Some people call it methodology. Someone called it the technique. You are calling it the presentation style. So all these things contribute to what happens in the classroom. And because we have control over that, because as a teacher, I can decide what methodology I would like to use, what presentation style I would like to use. For instance, why have I shown a video today? So I decided that I wanted to show a video, though I knew that it was a little long. I chose that video and brought it to the class and showed it to you. So I have some control over what I am doing in my class now. So why am I using a slideshow? I can also speak without a slideshow. So I am using a slideshow. Why I am using a certain color there? So I have control over that. The textbook does not insist that I should use a certain color, I should use a PPT or not, etc., etc. So wherever teacher can handle, manipulate, and control things, the teacher can do that so that he meets more than one learning style. That's the idea. So let's move on from here. Why do you teach in the class? Anyone? Why do we teach?
The transfer of information.
Transfer of information, that's knowledge. K on the slide stands for knowledge. Knowledge is information, data, etc. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
I think to make students ready for the society.
Yeah, preparing the student ready for tomorrow. Yes. Do you have any vague idea? What does that letter S there stand for?
Skills.
Thank you, Shreyasi. Yes. So we also try to build some skills in our classroom.
A for attitude.
Whatever subject we are teaching, irrespective. Correct. You're right. You're all right. So knowledge, skills, and attitude are the 3 things that we are trying to develop in our classes. So a good teacher always not only just does stop by transferring knowledge to the students, but also builds some skills, because without skills, knowledge is useless. So these skills must be also relevant to the life outside, and a good teacher aims at building the skills such that the student is prepared for tomorrow, prepared for employment, etc., etc. And also building the right attitude. At the college level, university level, there may not be a very specific syllabus to teach attitude, character, values, etc., etc. in the classroom, but still that is one of the jobs that we need to do directly or indirectly. Whatever subject, I may be teaching physics or statistics, but still it's my job to build the right attitude in my students. How I do it is my choice. So the teacher, the subject content may not directly be conducive to teaching attitude to my students. I may not be directly asked by the university or the examination system to build good values in my students, but still it is one of the responsibilities of the teacher. So building knowledge, building skills, building attitude, building the right attitude are some of the things teachers do. There can be a few other answers. You can think of them and answer them later. Perhaps we do not have time to discuss it further, but I left 1 or 2 blank spaces there so that you can add a few other things. Right. In case I have to build knowledge, skills, and attitude in my classroom, as I told you, irrespective of the content that I am teaching, the subject that I am teaching, what factors affect learning in my classroom? So there are some 50 students in my class. These 50 students, as you already told me, have come from different social backgrounds, different biological builds, and different things, cultural, ethical, etc., setups. And then what are the things that are affecting the learning that's happening in the classroom? I'll give you 3 answers. You have to give me the 4th answer. 3 things that affect are the learning preferences of the students. So because they learn differently, they have a preference. I learn best when this condition is met. I learn best if this is met, this is given to me. If my teacher writes at the board, I learn best. If a teacher does not write at the board, is only speaking to me, perhaps I cannot learn as good as when it's written on the board. So there might be students like that. So my learning preferences decide the way I learn. So that is one factor that is affecting the classroom activity, whatever the teacher is doing. The second is the institutional environment. So how good is the furniture here? How is the light bright? If the light is not bright in the classroom, maybe there are some students who are not able to learn because of that. Where is the window? Where is the door? How is the furniture? How is it structured? Where is the board? Can it really be seen from by the student sitting in the back row? So can I make any infrastructural changes to this? So because of those infrastructural changes, can I make learning more effective? And also, what is the kind of principal that we have in our college? What is the library that is there? What is the physical infrastructure that's available there? So these are all, they may look sometimes very silly and uninteresting and irrelevant, but they are extremely relevant to the process of learning. Imagine you yourself are learning something, you are sitting at home, maybe you do not feel the same comfort level. If you move to another place, even within your home, one place perhaps is best suited for you to learn. One time of the day, perhaps is best suited for you to learn. And the same is with the students also, right? So institutional environment is not only infrastructure, but the kind of comfort that's available, etc., the kind of treatment that's given to the students in the class. And the third thing is the teaching learning materials. The materials are the textbooks, for instance, the laboratory equipment, for instance, the reference material that's available in the library. So what are the training and learning materials that are available to the students also decides the way learning happens in the class. Now my question is, how much control do you have over these 3 things?
Not much.
Not much, thank you. Not much, perhaps even not any, because I don't write the textbooks. I don't decide the infrastructure of the college. I don't decide the learning preferences of my students. I cannot change them easily. And they should know, I need not also. Very less are almost nil. Uma, thank you for saying very less. It's not only very less, but almost next to nil. We hardly can, influence them, change them, right? And take care of them, because this is done at a different level. learning preferences are already decided, and then all the students come with a certain background with a learning preference, right? And institutional environment, because the management or the government, they decide. And I know, you also know how many colleges are there without any infrastructure at all. Unfortunately, again, there are colleges without buildings, there are colleges without furniture, there are colleges without a library, there are colleges without lots of things that should have been there. Then, because I'm speaking to you from my personal experience, because I taught in colleges where students had to sit down on floor. I'm talking about the graduate students. My graduate students had to sit on floor. This was about 45 years ago, but today the situation might have improved a little. But I'm talking about times and situations where we have very limited control over that. Then the teaching learning materials also, usually they are decided by the universities or some other policy making bodies. It sometimes is decided by governments, and the government's philosophy, what party is in power decides the materials, right? What we teach in the classroom also depends on the policy of the government. And at a lower level, the university, the department, or somebody else. Even in autonomous colleges, again, unfortunately, not many departments, not many colleges, not many teachers utilize the freedom they are given because they are not equipped to create materials of their own. What do they do? At least the autonomous colleges that I know, what happens? They just choose a certain textbook from some university. They identify, make some small changes here and there. They give a different title and they say, this is our textbook. Actually, I mean, this does not depend on any needs analysis, any technical survey that has been conducted. What do my students need? That kind of a survey perhaps is not done, and we just accept materials that are available to us conveniently and we use them in the classroom. So maybe there are some exceptions to this, and there might be some very good institutes where autonomy is fully utilized, and then teachers take care of this, and then they produce their own materials, keeping in mind the students' needs. That's, I think, congratulations to them. Hats off to such teachers and such colleges, but not many of them. So there is a fourth blank space there, factors affecting learning. The students' learning process can be affected by one more, and that is the teaching style and the teaching methodology. And how much control do we have on this one? Teaching style and teaching methodology?
We do have
full control.
100%.
100%.
100%. Thank you very much. Or if not 100%, at least 70, 80, 90%. Because I think most of it is decided by us. I go to the class and I decide to give knowledge and skills and attitude to my students. I want to build and I want to meet certain objectives set by the university or government or whatever. But to achieve that, I can use a style of my own, a methodology of my own. I decide whether to show a video or not. I decide whether this slide should be in black color or white color. I decide whether I want to write on the board or not. I decide whether to move about in the class or stand still. I decide whether to use a black chalk piece or a white chalk piece or whatever. So all these things are absolutely in the control of the teacher. So there is at least one factor out of these four which is fully manageable by us, fully under our control. And if you can address this, if you understand this, so here is something that I can do. I want to achieve this. These are the objectives of the system. These are my objectives for the class. These are the objectives perhaps of the student. So to meet that, because other things I cannot manipulate, there is one thing that I can handle and I can change so that it yields me better dividends. So this is one area where we need to focus. So my methodology and my style. Then, okay, to begin, I want to know my students. If I want to know my students, what is it that I want to know? Do I want to know their social background? Do I want to know their parents? Do I want to know their educational excellence, their attitude to things? What is it that I mean when I say I want to know my students? So as a teacher, so one of the most predominantly important things that I need to know about my students is their learning preferences. It's not easy, and maybe I'll come to that a little later during one of my later slides. So as a teacher, I need to know what the learning styles of learning preferences of my students are. One. Then I also must know their cognitive factors. Not everybody learns the same pace. Not everybody learns the same way. We already have seen that in the video that their cognitive levels are different. Their cognitive preferences are different. The way they store that information is different. The way they recall that information is different, etc. So a teacher must know this also. And teachers, of some of you who have done your BA, MA, or whatever, who have done a course in psychological foundations of education, perhaps know this. And emotional factors. Not every student responds to emotions the same way, and the teacher has a big, huge responsibility to use the right emotion in the classroom, to treat them the way they love to be treated, the way I think everybody, I don't want to go into too many details about that, but there is a factor, the emotional factor, that helps the classroom a very, very wonderful environment, a wonderful platform for students to interact with you, to learn from you. Where are you putting yourselves and where are you putting your students? What's the kind of bond that you've built with them? For instance, are you friendly with them? Are you like a mother or father to them in the class? So what kind of emotional bond that you build, that also is something that you need to learn from their emotional setup. And finally, the environmental factors. So if you know these four things about your students and about you also, some kind of SWOT analysis again, what are your SWOT about these four things and what are the students' preferences about these things, it becomes easier for you to make your classes more impressive, more useful, and more productive. Okay, coming to the topic. This is all the background because of which we need to know more about our students' learning styles and intelligences. So I think quite a long time ago, somebody by name Walter Berg identified three important learning styles or teaching models. He called them the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. It was often called the VAK model, VAK model. VAK model says or said during those days that students either learn visually, or they learn auditorily with their ears, or they learn kinesthetically by doing things with their hands, using their physical body. So this was a very, very preliminary kind of research that was done, and then they came out with this model then those days. Then after that, Neil Fleming said, oh, it's not three, it's actually four. There is one more kind. It's not only visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, but there is a fourth style, and that is called reading, writing style. So he said that all visual learners need not be reading, writing learners. Visual learners learn by seeing, and reading, writing students learn by actually having a book in front of them and reading it and writing it. So they are not kinesthetic. There's a difference. Kinesthetic by doing things, but there are a set of students who learn by reading and writing things. Don't worry too much. I'm going really very fast just to give you an idea how this concept developed.
But what is kinesthetic?
Sorry?
Kinesthetic.
Kinesthetic is activity-based, hands-on. So when you do something with your hands, with your senses, with your five senses, and then with your hands, particularly by moving about, by getting up from your place, by actually working on a model. Actually, what happens in the laboratory is kinesthetic. Right? They do things with their hands, right? Or they go out, play and learn, that kind of things. That's kinesthetic. Right. So there is another short video. Please watch this. And maybe you can give your comments on this. What do you understand from this after you watch the video? The video is here.
We all can become better learners. How? By understanding our learning style. How do you learn best? First, we need to understand what learning means. Learning is a process in which we acquire a skill or knowledge. In order to learn, our brains must absorb, process, comprehend, and retain information. Therefore, when it comes to the learning process, how do you learn best? How you learn best depends on your learning style. We all have strengths in the way we learn. Your learning strength will be your learning style. What are the different learning styles? The four that are the most popular and recognized learning styles are visual learner, auditory learner, reading and writing learner, and kinesthetic learner. First, let's take a look at a visual learner. A visual learner learns by seeing, learns more easily when information is presented in a visual manner, such as with pictures, video, charts, maps, and diagrams. Auditory learner. What is an auditory learner? An auditory learner learns best by listening and speaking. These type of learners tend to enjoy listening to music, stories, and prefer spoken directions over written directions. What is a reading and writing learner? These type of learners learn best through words. If you enjoy reading and or writing, you may be this type of learner. The last type of learner is a kinesthetic learner. This individual learns best when they can move their body, use their hands, or sense of touch. A kinesthetic learner learns by doing. How can you benefit from knowing your learning style? You can use those learning strategies and tools to support how you learn best. You can also study using your learning style. In the end, the better you understand how you learn.
Yeah, so that's a very short video. I trimmed it rather. So I think Prashant, you got your answer to your question. So when you learn by so when you learn by doing, you are a kinesthetic learner. So there are some students in your class who cannot learn unless they do something. So it can include reading and writing, but it can include a physical movement, a physical activity, a game, etc. Unless they do that, maybe you finished your syllabus, but they have not learned much. So there are maybe a small section of your students, one section of your students. Any other comments on this video that you've seen? This is some kind of a summary that we've discussed so far, but any other comments on this? Anyone? Okay, if you don't have any questions or comments, maybe we'll move on from here. So as I already made it clear to you, this is some kind of a summary of what we have discussed so far, how it affects our classroom performance, what are the four predominant learning styles. I mean, this is not the modern thought, but this has been there for some time. And those are the things. Then McCarthy came out with another theory. This is not exactly learning intelligences, but he called them learner types, student learners, learner types. So what he said, that there are some students who seek a personal meaning, a meaning to their lives, a meaning to their, they would like to know why they have come here, what they are doing here. They would like to give a larger, bigger meaning to what they are doing. So this is one kind of learners. They are innovative in nature. They are they love interacting with other students. They have a big goal in their lives. They would like the world to be a better place, and that's why they are here. So not only understand the purpose for which they are in the college, but also want to make the world a better place, a happier, brighter, better place for everybody. So they have come with a goal, a certain objective, and that's why they seek a personal meaning. Why am I created? Why am I here? What's my life for? Do I have some big purpose for which I need to live? So these kind of questions bring students to education, universities, colleges, etc. Then there are a second set of students who prefer to draw on facts. It's not the bigger purpose, but factual knowledge, right? Information, data is what they are looking for. They are highly analytical in their approach to whatever they're learning, whatever subject they are teaching, whatever subject they are learning. They are patient by nature, and they also are reflective. They think to themselves. So reflective is ability to think. Knowledge is one important purpose for which they are here with us in the college. The third category always love to find solutions, a little more logical than others, and they would like to apply their logical reasoning and find solutions to problems. They are good with their common sense. So they have a common sense, creative approach, and they are very practical in their approach to life and quite straightforward. Logical people usually are straightforward. And they want things to happen. See, the end result is the thing must happen. That's what's important to them. And the fourth category that McCarthy found was students who come to synthesize information, apply critical thinking by being very enthusiastic and being dynamic. They would like to find solutions by being adventurous. Adventurous is the ability to think laterally, apply creative approach to what they are learning, and go beyond what the teacher tells them, go beyond what the textbook teaches them, go beyond the classroom and think beyond that. So that is the fourth category. So McCarthy, instead of going to that, the learning styles based on that auditory, kinesthetic categories, he propounded a different theory saying that these are the learning types. People who learn for these reasons. Then Cole suggested another inventory. He called it an inventory. So a learning hierarchy. So some people learn by feeling, some by watching things, some by thinking, and some by doing. Doing is kinesthetic, of course. And watching is, of course, auditory, visual, etc. Thinking is reflective. Right? Maybe this is a new category. So we will come to that also again a little later. So some learn best by feeling things. So because even blind students learn, even deaf students learn, even dumb students learn. So sensory perception is one factor, but when you are a little limited on one of the senses, perhaps you develop your senses in other areas and then you still learn. So there are some very bright blind students, for instance. So they are visually challenged, but it does not mean that they cannot learn at all. So they can feel with their other senses to learn a lot. So he gave them names. The students who learn by feeling, he called them concrete experience type, and he called the watching kind of students reflective observation type, and those who learn by doing things, he called them active experimentation type, etc. Again, don't worry about these names. This is only just a historical fact which helps you just appreciate how this theory has evolved over the course of last 2 centuries or so. Then Felder-Silverman talked about the learning styles on a different scale, completely differently. Not related to the previous developments. He divided the learners on different scales, not one scale, on different scales. At each scale, he found 2 categories. On one scale, for instance, he said students are either visual or verbal. Students who learn by seeing, students who learn through words, right? Speaking, reading, whatever. Then on another scale, students are either inductive or deductive. There are students who learn from the specifics and go to the generals, and those students who start with the generals and come to the specifics. So there are 2 categories there also. Then he said there are 2 kinds of students on another plane. Some are sensing kind of students, those who learn with their feelings, and some are intuitive. They just learn very quickly. A quick grasp is enough. Intuitive learners. Then one more scale that he used is students are either active learners or reflective learners. Active learners, they try things out and then work with others, and then they do things with hand and then they learn. Reflective, they just sit back, quiet, solitary, and then they think, right? And I think some of your students, you can find every kind of student in your class if you closely observe them. And the final scale that he used is, he said, some students are sequential, step by step, right? Phase to phase, right? Linear, orderly, organized, systematic, move from step 1 to step 2, step 2 to step 3. Some students learn like that. If you miss one link, they don't understand things easily. Then there are some holistic learners, global learners. I think whatever order you put them, so they can learn in large leaps and bounds. So just the whole thing you present them, I think in whatever order you put them, I think you can understand it. So students are, learners rather, learners, not students. Learners are divided on different yardsticks. On each yardstick, on each level, into two categories. So this was yet another. Coming to the most popularly used and perhaps the latest view on learning intelligences, multiple intelligences, is the slide that you see. So this is perhaps the most important to us, because this is one yardstick of defining learning styles and intelligences, which is very commonly used today. This is propounded by Howard Gardner, and the Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. Actually, at 7, the 8th one was added later. The last one that you see in the bottom row, naturalist, was added later. He had 7 learning intelligences, multiple intelligences. So what were they? Verbal, which is also called linguistic. Verbal, what does it mean? Verbal means verbal. What does it mean? Words. Verbal is vocabulary, words. So people who learn with the help of words. Words are their prop. With the help of words. If you use the right words, they learn very easily. These are the first category. Then the second are logical, mathematical. What do they learn from? Figures, logic, numbers. And the third category are visual. They learn with their eyes. It's very easy for them to learn when they see something. They work in space, right? And the fourth one are tactile. They learn by touching, feeling, and moving, and then acting and doing things. Unless they do something, they cannot learn easily. So what you write on the board is not important to them, but if you ask them to sit down, go up, and then go here, go there, do this, give them a piece of paper and then ask them to fold it or some such thing, they learn better. Then there are musical or auditory learners. These people learn best with their ears. So anything that they hear clearly, and more than what they see, more than what they do with the other senses and then other faculties, they learn best when they hear something. And the next are interpersonal learners, who always prefer to learn by being together, by working in groups, by working in pairs, etc. So collaborative learning is what they do. Then there are intrapersonal learners or solitary learners. So those who learn best if you just leave it to them. They prefer to sit alone, and then they think, they read by themselves, and then they do things on their own. I think the best way for them to learn is when they are in solitude, when they are alone. So even if they go to the library, they just sit in a corner, they take a book, read, analyze for themselves, they make notes, and then reflect, and they learn. And the last one, as I told you already, was added later, was the naturalist learning. Those who learn best when they go out into nature and interact with the environment and learn straight from life, straight from nature. Okay, so these are the 8 popular multiple intelligences that have been propounded, and then we are using this template for all our practical classroom purposes, materials, designing purposes, methodology, decision factors, etc. So let's see each one of these styles individually, and also consider some strategies that we can use in the classroom to help these students. Suppose I teach for English language in my class. When I am teaching English language, can I use any strategy that helps my verbal students? Right? Because I know there are bound to be some verbal students in my class, a few of them at least. And to meet their needs, to meet their learning requirements, is there anything that I can do? Is there a strategy that I can use? Because if you remember that slide that I showed you, I talked about 3 important factors that we have very limited control over, but one factor that we have absolute control over. That is the classroom strategy, the classroom methodology. So what methodology, what structure, what change can I make to my classroom approach so that my verbal students learn better? Because there is a long list of the answers here, I'm not going to discuss every one of them. Considering the time available, maybe I'll discuss 1 or 2 strategies in each category. For instance, I have verbal students in my class, and then I am trying to address them along with, it does not mean that I speak for 2 minutes to my verbal students and 2 minutes to my musically intelligent students and another 2 minutes to my intrapersonal kind of students. So it's not that. So when I am in my class, I am meeting the needs of everyone, but it's a unified approach. It is a comprehensive approach. For instance, when I showed you that video, the video had audio also. The video had text also. The video had music also. The audio had, the video had something relating to nature also. There was a fish there. There was an aquarium there. There was something like that. There were pictures there, etc. So that video, though predominantly it was a video, the video used all intelligences and it met all learning styles. Without that, how would, suppose the entire video was made by somebody speaking without any visuals, how would that have been? Though it was a video, it would still not have been effective. I think you understand that. Is that clear? Or am I confusing you? Any one of you can just give me your comments?
No, sir, it's all right. I mean, we're getting along.
Thank you, Purva. Right. So I'm telling you that when you are in the class, when I say you have some verbal students and you must do something to meet their needs, it does not mean that you must lose every other student and only there are 5 verbal students in my class and I'm going to meet them. It does not mean that. So whatever you are doing it for everybody. But at the back of your mind, there is a thought working. What is that thought? Oh, when I am doing this, my verbal students are with me. So I am doing something to meet the needs of my verbal students. So that's the idea. So in case you want to meet the needs of your verbal students, what do you do? For instance, take the first one, the first strategy. So often you use an acronym, whatever subject. So instead of giving them a list of words, suppose you give an acronym is a word created with the first letters of other words. Right? For instance, if you say UGUSIL, that becomes an acronym. But this is not a very popular acronym. This is not a pronounceable word. This is not a popular thing. That's why it has not become an acronym. It's only some kind of an abbreviation. If that abbreviation becomes like SWOP, for instance, like WebGYR, for instance. So if it becomes popular, it becomes a word itself, then it becomes an acronym. Okay, don't worry about that. So if you use some acronyms in your class, if you use keywords, suppose you highlight the key. So I mean, long ago when I started teaching, I think I told you last time, more than 45 years ago, I taught language at the college level, at the graduate college level. I think I had the habit of buying with my own money color crayons. They were not available in the places where I taught. They were all rural areas. So whenever I came to Hyderabad, I used to buy some color chalkpiece. And I used to have a box of my own in my own rack. And I used to take these color chalkpiece to my class, and then instead of using that white one, which all other teachers used, because that was the only one the college provided. The college did not provide color chalkpiece those days. They were perhaps expensive. And when I took that, even when I taught them grammar, for instance, I underlined all the nouns in one color, all the nouns I wrote in one color, some such thing. So if I used a second color, I realized that students loved me for doing that. And the class suddenly became a little more enthusiastic, and then a little more interest was found, and the students liked me for that. And then, it was a very simple technique, that's all, right? So I underlined the words, for instance, or maybe I bolded the letters. Computers were not known then. Computers, perhaps nobody knew what a computer was those days. So if I just bolded that letter, or if I repeated a word, if I gave them the meaning of a word, so the words that I used, made them go with me. So I can create some word games. Whatever subject, don't think only language teachers do this. So even a biology teacher can do this, even a mathematics teacher can do this. So you can create some games with words once in a while, be suiting your time, suiting the opportunity, suiting the mood of your class, and suiting the need, the demand of the class or the examination. You can use your own style again. So these kinds of things, there are lots of other possibilities there. And all these are strategies that can be used in the class to meet the needs of verbal students. Then another thing that you can do is, if you realize in your class that there is a student whom you have been observing for the last 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, and you found that this fellow, this student is a verbal learner, you can, outside the classroom or when they approach you for some career counseling or whatever, you can take them into confidence, and then you can tell them that they will become poets, writers, and they can become even politicians, right? Use of words, right? Because most politicians rather, are successful because of their oratorial skills. Oratory includes the right use of words. Lawyers, writers, teachers. So teachers must be very, very comfortable with a range of vocabulary. So, I mean, in case my vocabulary is extensive, reasonably, I mean, it does not mean that you should become a Shashi Tharoor to use all the words that are there in the dictionary. So, if you use the right number of words, the right time, the right synonym in a certain context, I think you are meeting one important need of your students. Right? So you can suggest to them that they can look for a career as a translator, as an interpreter, as a journalist, as a poet, etc. So the things that you see on the bottom of this slide here, these are some career opportunities possible. Maybe you can take screenshots of my slides, or maybe this video will be made available to you by the university later. Perhaps you can make a list of them, and you can keep them at the back of your mind when you personally talk to your students and advise them to see these careers. It does not mean that somebody who has done MSc Physics or BSc Physics should become somebody who uses physics for a career. So all of us are aware that the top subjects that we study and the jobs that we do many times are not related, except in the case of teaching. Perhaps in other fields, we come from different backgrounds and we do different things, right? So this is one career counseling trick that you can have up your sleeve. The second category of students are logic. You can stop me, please, anytime. Yeah. Thank you very much. Please feel free to stop me and then ask me questions if you have. So the second category of students are the logical kind of students, the logical intelligence, logical learning style. And in case, as you are bound to have some logical students in your class, and then what can you do to help them? So these are a few things. I deliberately put numbers. In the previous slide, I did not put 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember? So I just wrote them. But a logical student would love the bullet points to be put with some numbers, some sequence, etc. They work with numbers, they work with logical flow, etc. So in case there are you need to meet the needs of the logical students, what can you do? For instance, take a look at that fourth point. So if you can add a few statistics to your lecture, if you bring a few facts to them, again, don't worry about the subject that you're teaching. All subjects are conducive to help you as a teacher build your lesson, incorporating all these things, right? For instance, if I am teaching again English language or literature, I can bring in some statistical data there also, right? Very simple things like how many lines are there in a poem, how many words are there in that line, and how many commas are there, how many rhyming words are there. So this information that they love, they are very good at grasping this. Maybe they do not follow the poem itself. They may not be very good with other things, but once statistical data comes to, they are terribly good at that. So again, keep at the back of your mind the need for adding some statistical data to your class every day. Wherever possible, as frequently as possible, some statistical data, especially if you write at the board, and then if you draw their attention to those numbers, that logic, that sequencing, that order, I think students would love it. One set of students. So the moment you see this previous slide and this slide, I think there are certainly some of you who like this second slide because numbers are there. Maybe the previous slide, somebody else perhaps likes it. Again, in case you want to advise your logical students, what are some professions that you can suggest to them? So they are great researchers, they can become good accountants, auditors, mathematicians, computer specialists, IT technicians, IT technologists, and scientists, etc., etc. So these are some professions suitable to them. Again, please remember, it does not mean that students who have other intelligences cannot become a scientist, cannot become an accountant, but the logical kind of students, students who have this logical intelligence are the best suited here. So I repeat it, in case a student in whom you have found this logical intelligence to a very high degree approaches you, sir, please suggest some career opportunities for me. Instead of suggesting a routine career opportunity for them, you can tell them that here is an opportunity, you can become an accountant, and I'm sure you can shine there. For this, you need to do two things. First, you must have a clear idea what kind of a learner he is, what style he learns, what is his intelligence style, intelligence type, and then based on that, you can suggest to them. These are some professions appropriate for them. Then there are the visual learners. So what strategies can you use in the classroom to help these visual learners? Visual means they learn by seeing. So something must be appealing to them when they look at things. So do you have anything in your class which appeals to the eye of your students? For instance, I already told you that we just go and give a lecture, a 40-minute, 50-minute lecture. Maybe there are some students who love listening to lectures and then they learn, but there is a visual learner who is completely lost. He has nothing to learn that day. That 45-minute lecture has gone over the head and he has not, understood anything, and perhaps he cannot use that again. So there must be something in your class, something, I said not everything, there must be something, a part of your class dedicated to meet the needs of the visual learners. Let's take one example, the first example, for instance. So if you take a visual aid to the class, right, some image, some picture, some chart, I think biological sciences, physical sciences, mathematics, any subject, I think when we are younger, not every, but many teachers used to bring charts to the class. They used to bring a huge chart and a pointer stick, and then they used to display it on the wall of the class, and then they used to show us things on the wall. These days, luckily for you, there is a technology available to you. There are simulations available to you. There are some 3D models available to you for teaching many subjects, and you can use these things to make your presentations visually appealing. Again, drawing the example from the same video that we have seen at the beginning of this lesson. So if without showing that video, suppose I spoke about that, the same content, suppose I presented to you in the form of a lecture. I spoke to you for about 5-6 minutes about whatever was said in that, suppose I said it to you. Would it be the same appealing? I don't think. So nobody can match that. I don't think. So, because that has taken care of all these factors when that video was made. So that all these factors, like a movie impresses us more than anything else. Like listening to a story is different, watching a movie is different. Some students perhaps love listening to stories, but there are some who are more impressed with watching it on screen. So now we are talking about the second category. So if there are bound to be some visual students in my class, so that's what I do. So I show a chart, I show them a visual, even if I draw a picture on the wall, if I'm good at it, or maybe if I ask students to draw their own pictures, right? That also, you need not do it if you're not good with that. But things that they see, right, impresses them most. And what are the best careers for them? They can become navigators, they can become sculptors, artists, painters, architects, right? Visual artists and designers, etc. These are some opportunities for them in their careers. So they might have done MSc biology, but maybe they can become good interior designers because they have knowledge of plants, and they can have lots of floral designs in their interior designs, right? Whatever, it's always a combination again, right? So this is one. Maybe perhaps I've been speaking too long, and maybe I'd like to stop here for a moment, and instead of talking to you, speaking to you, maybe you can tell me now, what teaching strategy can you apply to meet the needs of the tactile, kinesthetic students, sensory students, those who learn with their feet, with their touch, senses. One or two of you. What can you do in your class to meet the needs of tactile students?
To make
some physical
alive,
experience.
Lahari, please. Lahari.
to make everything alive,
Mm-hmm.
as they can touch everything.
Perfect.
So the class should be experimental class.
Wonderful, wonderful. Hands-on. Right, right. Shreyasi, please.
Sir, some physical experiment.
Some physical things to touch,
Yes.
feel, etc.
Yes.
Good, good. So what again, for instance, if I am teaching a subject like language, still I can take some model to the class, or I can create a model in the class, right? Okay.
So can we use some kind of 3D model?
Yes, very much. Absolutely perfect. 3D models are the best. But in case you have simulations, if you have working models, I think they all work wonders.
So like I'm from zoology background.
Uh,
We can bring some kind of 3D animals, 3D from different phylum and all.
Luckily
And
for
we
you, there are
show-
many available free of cost or paid or whatever. There are lots of them available. 3D models particularly are available on the net now. You can download them. You can take them to the class. You can show them to the students, or you can ask your students to download and bring them to the class, and then you can identify which one best meets your needs. Even, I mean, suppose I'm a language teacher. If I have tactile students, what can I, suppose I've made a sentence and I cut that into pieces and give it to my students and ask them to reorganize, jumble them, and some such thing. They're touching. See, these are, so suppose, please underline all the red colored, all the nouns, and then put them in some order, some such thing. So what are they? They are actually touching them and feeling them. Instead of writing on the board, I have created an activity there. Like that, the teacher's resourcefulness is most important. Once the teacher is creative, resourceful, and knows the background, and the teacher always must know why she is doing this. It's not just because it's available. Just because a model is available, I don't take it to the class. I ask 10 questions before I take it to the class. Is it relevant? Does it help me teach better? Do my students perceive it better because this is available? So if I have answered these questions and take it to the class, it becomes. Prashant, you would like to say something?
Such as Louis Braille script for visually handicapped people. Time method, I think.
Prashant, your voice is not clear, but I think you said something relating to your classrooms full of some activity.
I am just giving an example of if for visually handicapped people, Louis Braille script is used. This is a example of
tactile. Yes, Braille is an example of tactile learning, and like the visually impaired students learn through Braille, even the normal non-handicapped students also can learn lots of things when they touch things, when they feel things, etc. Bandhopadhyaya, would you like to say something? Rituparna also.
It's
Rituparna,
Lahari.
please. Yeah.
Lahari Bandhopadhyay. Yeah. Sir, I'm teaching philosophy. I'm a student of philosophy and teacher of philosophy. I involve them through their everyday's example and everyday's experience.
Thank you.
And then they can touch the whole theory through the examples and through the stories.
Right.
So I apply this. Thank you.
That's one kind of the inductive method also, but maybe it can be used here as well. Rituparna, would you like to add something?
Yes, sir. This is specific to my field, which is for some, I am an English language teacher, and for other people who are opting for alternative English, I am probably their language teacher. So for my literature classes, we often need to study dramas. So in the beginning of the class, I make groups in which they have to act out particular segment or scenes from their favorite acts of that drama. So that involves students who are more tactile, given to more field of action. And for the language students, I try to take on something which is extremely addictive, like computer games or mobile games.
Lovely.
So I ask them to solve word puzzles. For example, now we are trying to solve this puzzle called Wordle, which has gone viral. So all the students, they can also learn new words, as well as they are also addicted to something from which they can learn intuitively.
Thank you, Rituparna. What you did is actually not one learning style. It's a tactile, it's interpersonal, it's logical, it's even verbal. So you have combined all of them and then created your own activities. I think that's perfect. This is exactly what teachers need to do. So keep the needs of multiple kinds of learning styles in mind and then meet all and meet as many as possible. I just wanted to share with you that perhaps you can have some hands-on opportunities for students to lay their hands on things and learn from them. This is a tactile. And the careers best advisable to them are film acting, TV acting, becoming artisans, sculptors, etc. And then athletes. Sports is a great opportunity for such learners. Crafts also is a wonderful area where these students can shine best. Musical is, don't be mistaken by the word musical. It's not music alone. It's anything they hear. Auditory is included in this. So those who learn with their ears, and of course, if it comes in the form of music, it's all the better. So this is another category. And
Sir, can you please show the previous slide?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. So the next one, what I've done is I have recorded my own voice. What you hear is my voice. The auditory learners in your class learn best. I'm stopping that to save time because we have another 15 minutes to finish this. So what I've done is I've created an audio of my own voice. And for instance, if I'm dealing with a class of 50 students, how can I use this? Maybe I created my own audio lessons and share them with my students on WhatsApp or whatever. My class may have a group, either a mail group or a WhatsApp group or whatever. So if I send an audio file, sometimes a visual file, a video file, sometimes a question to meet my logical students, sometimes a quiz. So what am I doing? So instead of doing the same thing every day, doing the same kind of assignment every day, I'm trying out different things on different days, or maybe different things on the same day, so that more students get engaged. That's the whole idea, right? So there are some student. For instance, the best way to approach these students to meet the needs of these students is to give them you need not even give them, you suggest some audiobooks. I think there are any number of audiobooks available in the market now. They are downloadable and many of them are free also. So you can just tell your student, okay, this is a website where you can download this audio format of this book. And there are students who love listening to that. They don't want anything else. Once they listen, I think they grasp best. So every teacher must have a library of, not that physical library available in your college, but a personal library of resources. There need not be physical books in your almirah. They are resources that you can share with your students. Okay, these are the websites you can go to. These are the tools that are available to you. This is what you can do with this. So even for instance, you talked about the modules, the models that you take to the class. So you can even suggest that these are available. So if you want to look into the biology of a human being, right? If you want to the anatomy of a human being. So here is a 3D model. Please go and watch that. And they use their own mobile phones or systems or whatever later after the class. And then their grasp of what you've taught in the class is much deeper. Okay, what are some suggested careers for these musical auditory kind of students? They can become musicians, disc jockeys, singers, composers, lyric writers, music critics. Music criticism also is a huge area. I think not many students perhaps have tried this. This is one area where there's a lot of money now. So recording studios have lots of different departments, lots of different skill sets. So you can tell your students to simultaneously, along with what they are doing in the class, along with what they are doing in the college when you are there, you can also ask them to build their skills further, right? To excel in those careers, right? So the next one is the social learners. Can any one of you quickly tell me what methodology is most appropriate to meet the needs of the social kind of student?
Sir, we can make the students observe something and then let to know that what they have observed. Hello?
Right? Yes, please.
Answer by observation, and ultimately knowing that what they have observed, we can make them enhance by their social skills.
Right. Right. So like both of you said, so observation is one, and then working together. Social is mostly related to working together, not alone, but working in the companionship and in the company of other students. So when they work together, they learn best. So for that, the easiest way is create some collaborative opportunities, pair work, group work, triads, etc. Or give them a project and ask them to work together and then come with the answers and results. So what do? They form groups and then they work together, they put their minds together and they come out with solutions. So learning becomes enjoyable, fun, easy for them because they love learning along with others for this social category of students. And the best careers for them are going into research and theater artists and philosophers, politicians, salespersons, teachers, social workers. All these people love working in groups. That's why there are lots of career opportunities for them. Quickly going on to the solitary kind of learners, the last but one. Solitary learners, as the name indicates, they learn best when they are alone. If you just leave it to them, I think they are very happy. They sit in a corner, they read the book, they listen carefully. They're good at listening. Solitary learners are excellent at listening. Their listening skills are very, very good. So you just give them some individual problem solving tasks, something that you need to do on your own. No group, no collaboration, no project work, nothing. You just give them the task and they are ready with the answer because they learn best when they are alone. And what are the careers available to them? They can be counselors, they can be philosophers, they can be very good critics, right? Book reviews, film reviews, I think huge opportunity there. Then they become writers. Most writers are solitary learners. I don't know if you've ever thought of that. And statesmen, right? All these are careers available. The last one is naturalist. I told you this, the 8th one was added later to the list. So naturalist, again, as the name indicates, naturalist learners are those who learn best when they go out into nature, when they commune with nature, when they learn straight directly from nature. It's not, what can teacher do here? The teacher can take them out. The teacher can conduct a picnic. The teacher can conduct an educational tour. The teacher can take the student just outside the class and then ask them to look into the sky, look at a flower, look at an animal, etc. They are very good with interacting with even animals, flowers. My mother-in-law used to talk to flowers, plants, animals. There was a little cat and then she would speak to her. My mother-in-law would go stand in front of a tree and then speak to that flower. To a stranger, it might look like madness, but they have that capacity to do that. They have that ability to do that. So she used to speak to individual flowers. Oh, you are alone today. You don't have any company. Some such thing, right? So there are learners like that in your class also. So what do? You conduct an excursion, a tour, a picnic, or just take them out of the class. Even language teachers couldn't. I did it many times. I used to take my students out onto the ground or under a tree or somewhere, wherever the campus allowed me to take them. And I just used to interact. I used to teach them the routine things. Even sometimes I taught them grammar without a board or whatever, but I used to take them out. They used to enjoy that. That's all. The very fact that the students are outside the classroom was some kind of freedom for them. Right. Okay. Of course, everything may throw up some problems. We are not talking about them today, but how students learn is what we are discussing. And then what are the best careers for them? Photography. I think excellent. They make very good photographers, natural scientists, adventurers, explorers, etc. So these are the various learning styles that we've seen. Now I have a quiz for you. Please take a look at the screen, and then there are 8 pictures and 8 intelligence types on the right side. You have to tell me which is which. The first is this picture. I think you know this picture where my cursor is there. Who is this?
Gautam Buddha.
What was his intelligence?
Naturalist.
Okay.
No.
Not natural.
No.
Solitary.
Interpersonal.
You're right, Nirmala. Solitary, intrapersonal. He looked within. See, to understand life, he went into a forest, he sat under a tree, he looked within, he understood himself, he asked lots of existential questions, and then he came out and then became Buddha. Right. This second picture that you see here.
Vishwanathan Anand.
What was his intelligence?
Logical.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And this third one?
Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah Winfrey, right. And what was her intelligence?
Interpersonal.
Thank you. You're all very bright. Thank you so much. And this fourth one, we took his name.
Shashi Tharoor is verbal.
Verbal, absolutely. This one?
Salim
Sorry?
Ali, naturalist.
Right. Thank you, Prashant. Thank you very much. Salim Ali. And what was his intelligence?
Naturalist.
He was an ornithologist. He was an ornithologist. He studied birds, and he was a great photographer, right? So he was a naturalist. And this one?
Charlie Chaplin. Bodily.
Charlie Chaplin, bodily.
Musical.
This one?
M.F. Hussain.
He worked with?
Bodily, because he was a painter.
Huge, larger than life paintings, pictures, visual and spatial. So visual as well as spatial. The word spatial might have confused you. So visual and spatial are one and the same, right? And the last one?
Rahman.
Thank you very much. Though I think somebody has switched on 2 systems. I think you have to switch off one of them. There is echo. All right. So these are the 8 very, very easy to appreciate examples that I've chosen because they're predominantly intelligent in one aspect. But let me warn you, it does not mean that they are not otherwise intelligent. It does not mean that Vishwanathan Anand not intelligent visually. He was intelligent visually also, but his predominant intelligence was logical, mathematical, sequential, right, etc. Right. So this is, one just simple quiz to help us understand. And these are the 2 websites where you can take a test for yourself to check what kind of intelligence you are. Maybe I'll share it with you on the chat box. One moment. Yeah, I'll do that after I finish the class. I think it needs. I've not copied this.
Sir, excuse me. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sir, the learning styles that you are teaching, I know it's for the college students or senior. Can we try this on kids and children?
They are most relevant to school children, younger children.
Yeah, that's why. Can we try it for school children or kids?
Who has logged in from 2 different devices? It's the host, I think. Please switch off one of them. I think the host has switched on 2 systems, I think. Right. So these are the 2 websites that I'll share with you a little later after another 2-3 minutes. And you can take a test to decide what kind of predominant intelligence you possess. Right. I think there is a problem again. I'll stop and start sharing again. One moment. Yeah. So finally, the last 2 slides. The first is there are lots of critical views on these learning styles, people who do not agree with this, and people say uh, learning styles change over a period of time. Today, if I am predominantly logically intelligent, it does not mean that I am going to be logically intelligent all my life. My learning style may change, and strengths and preferences are different from each other. So there are some critical views on the concept, on the philosophy of multiple intelligences. Finally, to conclude, I just would like to tell you that as a teacher, what are a few things that we can take home from this class? The first is every teacher must be able to appreciate that there are different kinds of learners in my class and they have different preferences. Each student is an individual and each student comes with lots of different backgrounds and other environmental factors and other factors that we've seen in one of my first slides. And that's why my teaching must suit as many kinds of students as possible. It must meet as many preferences as possible. This is the first take home that I think you should take from this class. The second one is I need to have multiple strategies. One strategy is not going to work. I must have multiple strategies to reach to meet the needs of my students. And I must offer them a variety of resources. I must have a video, I must have a visual, I must have some question, I must have a quiz, I must have something written on the boards, I must speak, and I must take them out, and all these things. I must have multiple strategies wherever, whenever possible. It does not mean that you must go out of the way to do any of these. If you can incorporate as many of these as possible into your lesson, that 50-minute, 40-minute lesson, don't complain, sir, I don't have time for this, I cannot do this, I cannot do that, I can't draw. I mean, I'm not talking about the limitations that we have. So in case we can build some of these factors into our classrooms, I think our purpose is met, and then we can help more students. And the entire everything that we do in the class must be inclusive. I don't know if I have 2 minutes for a video. Just, I mean, I think it's 11:30. Would you like to wait for another 5 minutes?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So it is a very short video. Please watch this video and we'll stop after that.
थर्ड स्टैंडर्ड में फेल हो गए, यकीन करेंगे थर्ड स्टैंडर्ड और सुधरने का कोई आसार नहीं। ये मेरा बड़ा बेटा हर क्लास में हर सब्जेक्ट में फर्स्ट आता है और वो दूसरा। आपको क्या लगता है उसकी प्रॉब्लम क्या है? प्रॉब्लम उसका रवैया, और क्या? पढ़ाई की तरफ, हर चीज की तरफ हमेशा बदमाशी, तेवर ही तेवर, कभी कोई बात ही नहीं सुनेगा। मैं आपसे उसका प्रॉब्लम पूछ रहा हूँ, आप मुझे सिम्टम बता रहे हैं। आप बता रहे हैं बच्चे को बुखार है, वो मुझे मालूम। मैं पूछ रहा हूँ बच्चे को बुखार क्यों है, वजह क्या है बुखार की? हाँ, कभी आप ही बताइए, बताइए। उसके पढ़ने लिखने की गलतियों में आपने कोई पैटर्न देखा, कोई गलती जो वो दोहराता हो? पैटर्न, काय का पैटर्न? सब गलतियां ही गलतियां। फिर आप पैटर्न पहचान नहीं पा रहे। ये देखिए, ये डी की जगह डी तो डी की जगह बी, एक जैसे दिखने वाले अक्षरों के बीच में कंफ्यूजन। और ये एस और आर उल्टा लिखा है, बल्कि कई सारे अक्षर उल्टे लिखे। ये देखिए, छोटा एच, छोटा टी, देखा मेरे इमेज में। एनिमल, 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 एक ही पेज पे 3 अलग अलग स्पेलिंग। इसका मतलब कोई एक गलत स्पेलिंग उसे याद है ऐसे। दूसरी बात, एक जैसे शब्दों को मिक्सअप करना है। ये टीओपी टॉप बन गया पीओटी मॉडल, SOLID सॉलिड बन गया SOILID। क्यों करते हो ऐसा? बेवकूफ है, आलसी है ना। मेरी समझ से उसे अक्षर पहचानने में दिक्कत हुई। जब आप APPLE एप्पल पढ़ती है तो आप अपने दिमाग में एक लाल लाल एप्पल बना लेते हैं। ईशान वो एप्पल पढ़ ही नहीं पाता, शायद इसलिए मतलब नहीं समझ पाता। पढ़ने लिखने के लिए अक्षरों की आवाज, उनकी बनावट, शब्दों का मतलब समझना जरूरी है। ये अहम जरूरत ईशान पूरी नहीं कर पा रहे। ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, ये सब बहाने हैं पढ़ाई टालने के। अरे ये पढ़ी मिस्टर अवस्थी, ये कैसे पढ़ सकता हूँ चाइनीज में? अरे कोशिश तो कीजिए, चलिए ध्यान दीजिए। क्या बेकार की बात कर रहे हैं, मैं कैसे पढ़ सकता हूँ? इसका बदतमीजी कर रहे हैं आपका रवैया ठीक नहीं, आप शैतानी कर रहे हैं। कुछ ऐसी ही कैफियत होती होगी ईशान की, अक्षर ही समझ में नहीं आते। इस पढ़ने लिखने की तकलीफ को डिसलेक्सिया कहते हैं।
I think you're all familiar with the film that this clip is from.
Yes,
And then
yes, sir. That is a main question.
also how the intelligence of this boy was discovered by a capable and perceptive and passionate teacher. And instead of just categorizing that student as a certain category, he understood what learning style that person, then what could he be good at and what he was not good at, and why we are making this mistake of expecting every fish to climb up a tree. I think that made the difference. I think there are many such students in our classes, unrecognized, undiscovered, unappreciated, and that's where our job actually has a beautiful dimension. And in case we understand and appreciate these individual differences, multiple learning styles, we can use appropriate strategies to help our students. So if you carry that last video and the first video in your mind and heart forever, I think your success as a teacher will be much more happier, brighter. Your profession, I'm sure you will love whatever you do in the class. And then in case every student is benefited because of what you do in your class, I think that is the ultimate that we can achieve. So thank you very much. In case you have any questions, you can ask me. I'm stopping sharing. Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, may I?
Yeah, please go.
Sir, first of all, wonderful and encouraging talk, I may say. But an unsolvable question hankering me continuously. That the current model of education does not allow all types of students, because finally it depends on how much they got at the end of the year through an objective methodology. See, for example, a student can write down a very good, insightful answer within 10 marks or 20 marks. But he or she is not good at all by choosing an option and sometimes got very anxious, and anxiety creates out of it. So, therefore, we have to raise question against this objective system and objective method. So, not my question, but how we can allow all types of students through this modern method of learning? This is my question, and I may sound very harsh, I must say.
No, you're not. You're not harsh, but you are talking about the practical reality and the limitations that we have as teachers. What I told you is to go one step higher, one step deeper, one step closer to your students and try and check if there is something that you can do to evolve yourself as a better teacher to meet the needs of more students. See, all that we can do, we are already doing. Is there something more that I can do? Is there some area where I can improve myself so that my students benefit from me? So ask yourself, that is another kind of SWOT analysis. So once I do that, what happens? So, oh, here is one area, because I have never used a video in my class. Here is an opportunity. Let me also start using some videos in my class. Because I have never taken music into my class. Is there some scope for me to take music into my class? Let me do that. Is there some chart that I can carry with me? Is there a question that I can build into my class? Is there a quiz that I can take? So what is it that I can do which I have not been doing effectively? If we ask ourselves this question and find answers to that and do that, begin doing it, I think we are better teachers. That's all. Yeah, I think Paulami has raised her hand, I think.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I just want to add that, sir, don't you think that these all things which you have taught, the different ways of teaching and learning methods, this must start right from the school.
Yes, agree with you.
So, because the children are being forced to enter into lots of competitive exams, competition, and they are just, by the time they are reaching college, they are really losing any kind of interest in any subject. So, just to add to Lahari ma'am,
I
that
appreciate what you say, and it's absolutely correct also. Starting younger is always a great idea, but because they were not taught this way, because they did not have approach to learn their own preference, shall we just leave it at that because it's not productive, or shall we make an effort is my question.
so like just I want to give you an example. I have seen most of the kids are put can be put under solitary learning because most want to
No, I
sit
don't know how you
idle
came to that
and
conclusion. First of all, I don't agree with your conclusion. Maybe you did not study your students. There are many students in every class who are who love learning in collaboration. I think I have personal experience of hundreds of situations when the moment some group work started, students became so active, so enthusiastic. They loved the fun that it offered, despite all the distractions that were there, despite all the noise that it created, sometimes even chaos when I was not a very experienced teacher. So there were not many solitary learners. There are a few.
no, sir, I'm talking about the kids. There's few kids in school I have seen, sir.
It's also the same. Not many kids are solitary. There are some.
But they are being pushed somehow. So that's why, sir, I was telling
That's
you.
a problem. That's exactly the problem. We are pushed into becoming something which
Yes,
we are
sir.
not. So let's not do that. Let's not push students into becoming one intelligence type. Let's find out what intelligence is there. The same answer that you saw in the last clip from a movie. We are pushing them into, because you cannot read this word because you are dyslexic or because you have this problem. I don't want you to grow in some other area. I want you to do this. This is the only way I want you to grow.
Right, sir.
Yeah, Kanak Roy.
Sir, I am interested to know whether this intelligence pattern of us, is it very rigid or it can change time to time?
It changes over time. It changes sometimes in different situations. It even changes within the class for the same student for different times. It is possible.
Okay.
I am different learning styles. Anybody is different learning styles. Actually, it's a combination of different learning styles.
Okay.
Everyone. I think I made this remark after I showed you that Vishwanathan Anand's quiz. I said Vishwanathan Anand is not, intelligent in only one aspect, but is predominantly intelligent in one area. Everybody is a combination of all intelligences.
Okay.
Everybody.
But one channel would be mostly facilitating.
Exactly.
Okay.
One or a few.